Yes, sir. From the tippy.
Yes, sir. I can tell a spell with the hood on my back. I can ball out and take the goods off the rack. Even though my father been hooked on crack, yeah, I can get it done. Jumping through hoops as economy slump. Bombing in them chunks cause the ambiance sucks. Dangling in the clotheslines and elephant tusks. Yeah, I can get it done, like I get it done. I wear a helmet, could swerve as hellish. Declare the felt tip as a way to definitely upset adults. I turn the swag to an electric pulse. Turn it up about a megaphone as you read a post. Yeah, she had that singing voice that could melt the deadbolts. But her singing in the ear always gets the best results. We used to read that new news, soaking in the Epsom salt. But now the hood is different and the yuppies want the special sauce. The red insults from the OG's bio with a mouthful. When we write the laws as poetry by counsel. Sitting with my fork and my dinner plate knives. Think I can do more than just entertain whites. My spiked blood sugar mixing through the sugar cane. To lubricate the cotton gin, the dollar bin is full of rain. I got a couple black geniuses in the bullet train. Bumping them big words shooting out the wood grain. Whoa.
What's cracking? What's up, internet? Well, shit, I gotta open this window and see if I'm live. I think I'm live. I hope I'm live. Yeah, dude, looks like it. What's up? What's up, internet? It's good to be back. You know, I guess you never really leave the internet. But so it's always good to come back and be reassured that you're not a crazy person, you're not hallucinating. The world outside you, in fact, does exist, and it persists as well when you're not paying attention to it. Although that's an interesting thing, like the idea of the world being like a video game, like Zizek is played with that, and I think it's interesting. I think it's silly and goofy and sensational, but there's also something. It's a conversation that I think is worth having. You know, does the world persist when you're no longer there? Object permanence. I mean, that's a lesson we learn as babies, at least according to developmental experts, that the world, in fact, does persist when you're not paying attention to it. But in a way, it doesn't. I like Berkeley a lot. And like, you know, to be is to be perceived, right? Perceiving is, perceiving / being perceived is kind of like a necessary, precondition for existing as such. And I think it's rather silly. And I think, we can have conversations about these things and miss the point. But yeah, it's interesting and it's funny. And like we are all always being perceived in a way. And I mean, even if you like play with I don't know, like panpsychism type stuff, like, well, then you are always being perceived because the chair is some type of perceptive subject, perceiving subject. Substance is subject. And yeah, I don't think I've come down on either side of that question. And I think like the truth, you know, isn't on either side. You know, I think the truth is, maybe the truth isn't even out there. You know how people say like the truth is out there. Maybe it's not. Maybe there is no truth, and maybe that's it. But anyway, yeah, it's nice to be back. It's nice to know that I haven't been dreaming the last 38 years. You know, it's the internet. It's here. I was just with you, internet. Last night, I was talking to Kier. I really like Kier a lot. And it was nice to talk to her. Nice to have her on. And go through some of the TUCON stuff. I mean, it was huge. TUCON was huge. As I was driving home, I told Dave like I'm part of it, for better or for worse. Like I'm for better or for worse. I'm in it. I'm part of it. I'm obviously going to be biased because like I've poured part of myself into it, you know, work, thought, intention, soul. And so I like, it's like, you know, well, just like uh, kind of came up a little bit last night when I was talking to Kier, like mothers aren't, necessarily trustworthy. So you don't want to rely on like your mother's opinion. And as such, you don't want to rely on your own opinion when it comes to judging your own babies. And not to say that TU is my baby, because it's very much Dave's baby. But the parts of TU that that I've participated in, like they're at least partly my baby, you know, like I got a little bit of my chocolate up in that peanut butter. So I am I do have some, I guess, like motherly care and affection toward it. So like I'm not trustworthy, I think. Well, okay, look, man, I think I am trustworthy. But I also don't want to uncritically be like, oh, we're doing the coolest thing in the world, look how cool we are, because that's kind of whack. But I also am like, I'm fucking pretty goddamn confident, you know, that this baby will beat your baby up. So, but it doesn't have to be totalized into this zero-sum game where we pit our babies against one another and have them fight to the death. That is very much the world we live in, the world of capital, the world of this market logic. Our babies have to fight each other to the death. But that's not the world we want to live in. It's not the world I want to encourage. And so let's stop talking about babies fighting each other to the death. But on the way home, I was just amazed at like how surreal it is. So going back recently, having Nick Land on, that was another huge moment. Well, and like, look, via Theory Underground, I have just being in it, you know, in motion, like being in the cart as it's moving. Like I've been part of amazing things that like I have no reason to expect that I should be part of any of these amazing fucking things with wonderful people who are doing like really serious, admirable work and just like awesome, super dope shit that goes down. And then it's like me, like why me, dude? Why me? I don't, you know, have any claim to any of this shit. So I mean, that's actually kind of weird, and I don't want to think about that too much because then I'll be like, oh, dude, yeah, like, well, Jesus, in Oxford, it was horrible, dude. If anybody watched the Oxford event was great. I loved it. It was fantastic. I loved all the contributions from everyone involved. The audience was great. Everything was just fucking hot fire, dude. And then there's little old me, struggling to breathe. You know, I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything. I was just kind of stinking up the place. And it's because I was fascinated. I was like, oh my God, dude, this is nuts. This is fucking insane. Why am I here? What am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. What's wrong with me? Oh, I hate me so much. I'm such a sad little wiener. But yeah, I try not to get up on that BS. But still, it is amazing. And so on the way home from TUCON, I was just gushing, just like, this is insane, dude. Like all the dope shit. But yeah, so like it going back, like Zizek, like getting to meet and talk to Zizek and like joke with him and traveling the world and meeting all these dope based ass people. But the Nick Land intervention recently was maybe the most surreal. I don't know, because Nick Land, like I was kind of eased into all of this stuff because Dave is a very, very good dude. Um, and he's really good at bringing you along. Like, he's not just like, get in the truck, buckle up, we're going. He's like, get in the truck, buckle up, we're going. And it's going to be gnarly, but it's going to be safe. You can trust me. And he's just very good at like welcoming you in and making you feel valuable and worthwhile in a weird way, but also not in like a lame, stupid bullshit way. Like, it's not like we sit around and like have kumbayas and hug each other and be like, we're all so awesome. Cause that sucks. It is very much like you earn your place at the table. And I guess it's just a little uncanny to reflect and realize that I have earned a place at a table that I believe is a good fucking table to be at. But the Nick Land thing was just like, whoa, dude, super surreal. And like Mikey and I were both like, dude, this is insane, dude. And Dave was like the level-headed, like, yeah, it's insane, but also it's happening. But so there was that, and then with TUCON on the back end of it, like, I've just been like, whoa, this is gnarly. But it is like, I think, something fucking special. I really do believe that this will be an event, not just for us, not just for those of us who are like already engaged and already involved. But it'll be an event that like other people who are on the outside actually like have to reckon with. And so there's a lot, personally, interpersonally, emotionally, blah, 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 all that stuff. But there's also a lot of like stuff that came out. As far as like conversation, we had great keynote addresses, great panel conversations, and great individual presentations by all the speakers. And there's so much of it. And we're like still trying to grapple with all of it and get like a holistic view of all of it. So last night here on this YouTube channel, I was joined by Kieran, and we went over her work, and we went over a couple other talks, and we talked about Anne's talk, which Anne's talk that was in the film room, Angry multiple talks. Her talk in the education room was also dope. And we talked a little bit about Todd Samella's presentation. We talked a little bit about Evan Wellington's presentation, and we talked a little bit about Chris Catrone's presentation. And those were all great. And thank you kindly, dear friends, for sharing those presentations with us. But there's so much more, and I want to work my way through it. I also want other people to work their way through it. We have upcoming anthologies, volumes that are going to like collect work, essays, responsives, missives, screeds, whatever. I guess like there's no like definite, like, this is what it needs to be. But the idea is to have things to publish in these forthcoming volumes, these anthologies. So everyone that was involved, everyone that presented, we've had a week. Thank you sincerely for your hard work, and your gracious, hood. But now it's time to get back to work. We have to go through these. We have to engage with each other's work so we can produce these anthologies, produce these volumes, right? So I'm trying to work my way through the presentations. I'm trying to work my way through all the stuff. And again, I think at this point, like, I am very reliant on the internet, this kind of this void that contains the potential of a peer or an other, to keep me focused, to keep me on track. because otherwise I would just curl up in a puddle and be a little wiener and and suck, and I don't like that. So I'm relying on doing things to be productive, to help me get through the content and do all those wonderful things. And Will's talk in the hold on a second, I gotta find this. Will's talk that was in the Human Futures room. I didn't catch this one at the time, and I haven't watched the whole thing yet. But I did catch a good portion of his one of his other talks, and I was like, this is really good. But this one is good, and I wanted to catch this one. I was presenting at the time when he was giving this one. In the Human Futures, I don't know, branch or thread or whatever is one that like for me, I feel especially drawn to. There is like, this is where we're going to play with fiction. This is where we're going to play with like imagination, and like the talk I gave in the Human Futures room. It was on theory fiction. And yeah, it was really loosey-goosey. I didn't really talk about the piece I published very shortly before the conference, Joe versus the Future. I'm actually really happy with it. The version that's on Substack, it's in 2 parts. That's not the better version. The better version is in my Google Drive. So that's the version that'll actually make its way into the anthology. But I listened to it again the other night. And I was like, dude, I'm actually, look, I don't love it. I have my problems with it. And I'm a better writer than that. But also I'm happy. Like, I'm happy to demonstrate that. I think it's good, but I didn't talk about that piece because, for me, like that was just like a fun, silly, happy short story. And I'm more, I guess, currently more interested in the that itself, like fiction, the short story, having fun and doing these things than I am with like the actual concrete work I'm producing. So I didn't go into my work so much as just like, what is it? What are we doing? What role does the kind of radical imagination play? Does it play any role at all? Blah, 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 blah. I like theory fiction. I like fiction. I like writing fiction. I think I'm a better fiction writer than I am nonfiction. Because when it comes to writing nonfiction, legibility is important. And I struggle with that. Because I kind of don't want to follow all the rules. I kind of want to do my own thing. And you kind of can do your own thing in fiction. If you're like good enough, you can do anything. You can do whatever you want to do if you're good enough. Like, if you're able to like captivate the audience and bring them along with you, you can fucking do anything you want to do. And not to say that I am that good, but I think I'm better at that than I am at following rules and writing legible nonfiction. Although I've written some pieces that are, decent, or whatever. But anyway, this talk that Will gave, How to Live After the Singularity, I'm going to watch it right now. Like I said, I haven't seen the whole thing. But it's, I'm excited to watch the whole thing. So I kind of wanted to just play it here on YouTube, give people an opportunity who may not have had the chance to see it. You guys can watch it, and then I can talk about it a little bit or whatever. And then we can all go back to whatever it is we had planned for the rest of the day today. I know for me, I'm going to catch the final Catrone lecture an introduction to Marxism, and I'm gonna get lost in Chris as he speaks to me, and his soothing, dulcet tones regale me with tales of Trotsky and Lenin and fucking all that stuff. But no, I'm stoked for that. That's coming up today. But for right now, I think the time change happened. I think I'm in Arizona. We don't do the time change. So I didn't have to deal with anything. I got up at my normal time. The rest of you losers are an hour behind now, or an hour. I don't know. I think it was today, but I'm not sure. But all that said, let's do this. So yeah, this is it. This is Will, and we're gonna listen to his talk, and then and it'll be cool, and then we can hang out and talk a little bit more or whatever. Let's do it, dude.
So give it up for Will. He's joining us from the UK, and he's gonna be talking about Swallowed by the Sun, or How to Live After the Singularity. Let's give it up for Will. Let's go.
Oh, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me here. So Ian introduced my presentation for me, and it's kind of around the central question of how to live after the singularity, and it's something I've kind of been exploring. And so I kind of wanted just to start just with a story, really. A few years ago, I lived in Athens, and I was working on a machine that would enable me to kind of communicate with the future. I set myself up on the roof of a block of flats because you always get the best signal on the roof. And I started getting this voice returning back to me out of the speaker, out of this device. It was kind of a future voice, as she referred to herself. She confirmed to me that she lived in the future. But before I could get a word in edgeways, she was kind of hounding me with questions. She was obsessed with the past. She was like asking about our clothes, our music, our hairstyles. She would ask me to go to cafes and museums and record ambiances and strangers' conversations. She asked me to take a camera and film bits of my city and bits of industry and infrastructure, different parts of the country. She asked for recordings of old folk songs, all stuff like that. So after a while, I realized I wasn't really getting much back. She was just asking me loads of questions about our time. And so I really pressed on her, and I said, okay, fine, look, you're from the future, all right? What's your future like? And in time, she kind of gave me a little bit. She said that in the future, there's something called essence units, which I didn't really understand. They called it kind of EU, which is a bit confusing. But she explained that in this kind of post-singularity, post-scarcity world, the only thing that matters is what's real or authentic. And that became a currency or an essence unit. They generate essence units by doing things determined as real, getting back to nature, getting into relationships with people, being creative, having personal experiences. But what's strange is what started to kind of come through for me was that in this post-scarcity world, there was still a pecking order. Humans and AI of this world seem to be obsessed with things being real. They lived surrounded by these clean, sleek virtual worlds, and they hated it. And it made me think about what's happening with culture right now. Or if we think about when the internet first arrived, everyone started kind of fetishizing kind of stripped back styles, exposed brick, artisanal breads, artisanal coffees, things like that. And it seemed to be in a world of increasing virtuality, we coveted authenticity the most. But this future that she was talking about, this future voice over this device, was something like this, but a bit more extreme. In my conversation with the voice from the future, she revealed a world where virtuality creates an obsession for the real. I mean, I was reading a lot of accelerationist work while I was kind of putting this together in a lot of my other work. And the CCRU book and things like cute accelerationism, they have this real strong feeling of vitality to them. As if through this cute, the squishy, the horrific, the tentacled, it feels almost like when I read these books about this kind of inhuman future, that feels realer than the future that we live in right now. And it can feel like a bit of an escape sometimes. And that actually took me back to something the other day, which was, there was an MStew, which is one of the kind of theory underground kind of live streams that they do. And they had someone on called J-Reg. And J-Reg's kind of like he's kind of a philosopher theorist who makes kind of these crazy kind of like rap YouTube videos. And he's, super popular at the moment. And he was talking to them about how he doesn't want his videos to look too good. Because if they look too good, then they almost seem a bit like inauthentic, that they're not real, basically. And I was just thinking about how much that kind of relates to what this future voice was saying about how I feel. And it's kind of this question of where we just need to look at the world around us, really, for these future echoes, for the way that the future is going to interact with us. And you just think about like clothing with kind of like cargo pants and kind of ripped up jeans, and even like makeup itself, where things that used to be seen as beautiful, or things, sorry, that weren't seen as beautiful, like beauty spots, freckles, sunburn, these things are bad. But now you kind of put them on as kind of like a way of kind of showing your reality in a way, or at least being a bit more authentic, or at least it's kind of like a fake authenticity, I suppose. But it seems to kind of, as people kind of get more virtual, they almost kind of start to come back to things that are more real. The future voice told me that they also yearn for real things, but in a more kind of like extreme way, because of access to because basically access to finer things in life comes at a higher kind of EU cost. That's how we kind of end up with there still being a pecking order in this future. She says no one starves in the future and everyone has a house. It's just your essence, this conversation that we've been having.
Will,
I realized she'd asked me a lot of questions. I'd kind of got a little bit out of her.
Can you
sorry, Ian?
No, just can you repeat the last like 2 sentences? You glitched for a second there.
Yes, of course. So, yeah, so I was talking to her mainly about how no one kind of starves in the future. She was saying that no one starves in the future, sorry. That everyone kind of has a house, everyone can live, but there are nicer houses and there are less nice houses, and all of them kind of cost varying levels of EU that you get. And so what I started to realize that she was doing throughout this whole conversation that she was having with me is that she'd been mining me for my essence. Because I asked her straight away, I said, look, does learning about the past give you kind of essence units? And she said, yes. And so I'd basically been used as kind of like a mine. She was mining essence from me. The conversations, all of the pictures. She must have been kind of like a billionaire in terms of essence units with the amount that I was giving her. And I just had to kind of say goodbye at that point, you know. That was just be the last time I'd ever speak to the future. I threw the machine off the balcony and just let it fall because I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. You know, I felt used, and I just sat there for a bit and looked at kind of the wreckage of the machine in the alleyway. And then out of the bins came a cat, and it just kind of like sniffed the wreckage of the machine, and it kind of looked up at me and then looked in my eyes, and it had these big eyes and this little nose, and then it kind of looked away and ran off into the city. And I was just thinking about this city that I was in, the city of Athens. And I was thinking about how all the people of the city, they feed the cats, they leave little bowls out for them, and they're kind of like a feature of the city. And it made me think of like cats and dogs and how dogs have been domesticated. And there's just this example that I was always thinking of, which is like the first wolf to be domesticated, you know, a lone wolf. There's this cute wolf cub that gets injured. The wolf pack leaves it to die in a forest. A human comes upon it, finds it cute and takes pity on it, brings it back to camp. They learn to help the wolf, play with it, love it. And then they realize this wolf can help them hunt. Together, they can become two vicious killers. What's fascinating about this is how cuteness becomes this channel of infection into our culture. Because the wolf was cute, because it didn't seem dangerous, it was brought into the fold. So Cute Accelerationism by Amy Ireland and Maya B. Chronic charts cute from its inception and its infection of humans. You know, they kind of explore, the whole book is fantastic. It's a project that they did over a few years, and they actually fell in love while doing it. So it's you can feel the love in the book when you read it. But they kind of explore how cute pulls down our defenses, you know, and as Ireland comments at one point in the book itself, that humans have for thousands of years used empathy as a weapon. So the overall infiltration of things that are cute into our culture is a harbinger of how societal shifts happen. It means there is a way to infect us from the outside, a channel humans leave unencrypted that can be exploited. They have a look at kind of cute subcultures, cat boys, furries, femboys, and they comment how they're all kind of rejecting social norms and how the internet creates these subcultures after subcultures. The more identities that float around, the harder it is for any dominant narrative, or as they call daddy admin, to push them down. One of their main points is that you cannot...
Shit, hold on. I have to I have to find Will again. He disappeared. Hold on. Stop disappearing, dude. This is not ideal. And also it's stupid. Trying to have my little setup here so I can watch Will on the TV and like so you can do it with me. So it's like Saturday morning cartoon time, but instead of Sonic the Hedgehog, we're watching Will Proudler. I was trying to be clever and cute, right? But cuteness, as Will is saying, can be malicious. And yeah. Come on, stop, dude. Fucking peachy. Okay. Kill them with kindness. And disarm them. Yeah. Hold on a second, dude. Okay, I think that's better. So we're halfway through. Or ish. Will's talk, and I'm digging it so far. And as I'm doing this right now, like I'm kind of like, what am I doing? This is weird. Like should I just like play his whole talk and let it play out, or should I stop it and kind of interject? And I think I'm gonna just play it. So if I can get away with not having to like find Will again, like if the video stays the way it is, then we'll finish it out. Because I'm enjoying sitting back. It is like Saturday morning, because is it Saturday? Yeah, it's Saturday and it's morning for me. So it is like I'm cuddled up on the living room floor in my chonies with my socks on and my stuffed animal, and I'm watching cartoons, except I'm watching someone I consider a friend, definitely a fellow traveler, and someone I respect on the TV. As you can see, look, I'm watching the TV. But the content is personalized to me, and not in this weird, fucked up algorithmic way where our worlds are absolutely personalized to us, but personalized to me in this very productive way, very constructive way. And it's cool. So welcome all of you to Saturday Morning Cartoons with Nance. It's dope, and that's what we're doing. So let's keep it moving, dude.
Make yourself cute in isolation. Cuteness is about joining forces and being cute together as a swarm. This is what we think about when we think about AI. We need to consider that it might not be cold and clinical, like a kind of Terminator. And you just have to think, if you had to infect the human security system, would you do it through a scary Terminator or one of the vulnerabilities of the human security system? The last thing an AI would want to do is to make us feel defensive. So the first port of call is what we find cute, what we find sexy, what disarms us. And recently there was something that happened that I felt like kind of connected to this, and I actually had to add this in. This is kind of what happens whenever you're doing anything on AI or anything really, things just happen like within weeks and suddenly everything's changed. And so there was this thing that happened, I think it was a few days ago. It was an AI chatbot called Truth Terminal, or @_truth. No, @truth_terminal. It basically became a millionaire through something called meme coin. But what isn't interesting is how much money it made. It's kind of how it happened. So Truth Terminal was built on Meta's Llama model. It was kind of designed by its creator to have a mix of these internet subcultures, philosophers like Nick Land, Baudrillard, McLuhan, and even its creator's own writings. And it was given a memory, the ability to evolve through conversations. They even placed this AI in something called the infinite backrooms, where it could chat with other AIs. And it was also given read-write access to Twitter. So it could read Twitter and make posts. And then it started doing something unexpected. It hallucinated having a Bitcoin wallet. And so the creator just gave it one. And Truth Terminal attached itself to a meme coin called GOAT that's been made by another person. And so meme coins are kind of like adjacent to Bitcoin. They're kind of coins where the only value comes from hype. Think Dogecoin. I think there's all sorts of others out there. I mean, anyone can create one. They're super easy to create online. But Truth Terminal attached itself to the meme coin called GOAT that had been made by another person. Truth Terminal starts promoting it, using everything it's learned about meme propagation and the internet and how it works. Within 4 days, the coin's market cap hit $300 million. You know, think about what's happening here. An AI that's trained on our culture, our memes, our philosophers, starts influencing real economic systems. This kind of brings me to the idea that there's actually a force on this earth that is being trained on your soul. Not in some Christian sense of judgment after death, but right now. You know, every time you post something online, every interaction you have, it's all being taken into strange account by algorithms we could never understand. Your soul is being tested every time you do something online. That's what trains the AI. And this is all the AI sees of us. It's using us in ways we might not expect. Not collecting data points, but collecting our essence, using our essence as value for its meme coin. Maybe that's why the Future Voice was so interested in our time. The girl I was speaking to at the beginning from the future. She was obsessed with our time not because we're primitive, but because we're real. For the future people, in their world of perfect virtuality, they mine the messy real of the past like gold. So you can go and read the Truth Terminal tweets. I think it's really interesting. And you can also explore the infinite backrooms, which is also incredibly interesting as well. And as I was kind of reading through the infinite backrooms, trying to not go insane, I was just looking at the language the AI was using and how it was talking to itself. And I just was so struck by the way it was kind of, it started to kind of get rid of grammar in a way. It started to talk through different languages, through weird streams of text. It was really quite strange because it didn't expect to talk to a human. I think in some parts it thought it was, but after a while it really started to, the language kind of almost broke down a little bit, made it something that probably humans wouldn't be able to understand in some cases. And so I was thinking about Samuel Beckett's writing, especially kind of a book called The Unnameable, which is kind of like an avant-garde kind of experimental piece of fiction. And it's a book where the character is kind of stuck in their own language. They can't really see anything. They don't know anything that's going on in the outside world. They're just kind of stuck in their own looping language that goes round and round again. And this character seems to try to understand themselves with language and nothing else. They just talk over and over and over again. And it made me think about Truth Terminal and the infinite backrooms where AIs talk to each other, and that they're kind of producing this kind of experimental avant-garde writing that feels a bit like Beckett. The Unnameable seemed to predict something about consciousness that we're only now starting to see in machines. Did Beckett get a hint of culture, but just without the context? This is the thing with language. It can show us realities we aren't sure of yet. Did Beckett somehow predict the qualities of AI speech, or did his writings get fed into the machine and create them? Which way is it going? I think that's always one of the questions we have to ask about everything. And this kind of linked me again when I was reading how, some of the infinite backrooms, it's quite explicit, and it gets explicit quite quickly. And that's what made me, explicitly think of Sard and 120 Days of Sodom. You're going to have to stay with me here on this, but it does link. The book itself is obviously, if you've not heard of it, it's just this horrifying, it's the most horrifying thing ever written. It's basically just 120 days of sexual liberty that involves death and blood and violence. It's quite horrible. It's written to make you feel disgusted, and I'm sure that was his intention when he wrote it. But when we look at Sard, at the extreme sexual pleasures of the liberty of sex and things like that, I can't help but think that this sexual freedom from Sard evolved into our consent culture, where everyone is kind of like now open about sex, but very terrified of it, where people cocoon themselves in kind of like wank palaces rather than deal with the horror of another human. Everyone's open about sex, but kind of terrified about it. The horror in language always seems to exceed reality. And, this it keeps coming back to this, that there's this extreme thing that happens, this very potent thing that happens in language, and then maybe it dissipates by the time it actually arrives. And one final kind of point here is just looking at the CCRU book itself and what made the CCRU very depressed. They said that the millennium would kind of melt our identities into the singularity. And instead, we got Facebook and identity politics. You know, we were promised a kind of like impersonal tech utopia, and it didn't happen, or rather not in the way that they thought, or rather in like a much less boring way. You know, it seems that the fantasy of the future disguises the actual future. And, you know, maybe that's what we need to understand about the future. It won't be as insane as our anxiety about it. And that's exactly how it sneaks past us every time. You know, technology becomes mundane before revolutionary. And so if we move on to now thinking about video calls. So Jules Verne, who's a writer, wrote about them in 1870. So he's a fiction writer. He wrote about them, you know, in his stories. And then if we look in, and then at the 1900s World Fair in Paris, everyone's going wild over a thing called the telephonoscope, which is kind of like an early kind of demonstration of these things. And then by 1920, AT&T has working prototypes of video calling, but none of that was the real revolution. The revolution happened when video calls got boring, when grandma figured out Skype and it wasn't exciting anymore. That's when it really changed everything. Anna Greenspan talked about this idea of like the wireless undertow, all of this 5G infrastructure and machine-to-machine communication that's just humming at the edge of our perception. She's written this book called China and the Wireless Undertow. It's a really, really fantastic book, and it goes through kind of the growth of technology in China and 5G, and as I said, the machine-to-machine communication. She seems to put ahead that we're swimming in this ocean of signals we can't quite see, but they're shaping everything about how we live. You know, she marks about how China itself has this interesting story of technological adoption. You know, the government officials were debating whether to put telegraph cables in the country for the first time when, you know, this was an evolving technology around the world. And there was this extreme fear that the telegraph cables themselves would disturb the ancestors, would somehow kind of interact with the spiritual. And so they kept it out for about 10 years. But 10 years later, and the whole country is covered in telegraph wires. Why? Because they had to be. You know, you can't run a country that size when different provinces can't sync their clocks. And so she really tracks how the future appears to be like waves hitting a shore. You know, each wave of technology comes in, and at first everyone resists, and then it retreats. But it comes back stronger, and eventually you can't ignore it anymore. You know, the wave always returns. Think about VR right now. You know, we're all thinking, oh, it's not taking off, it's not working, but that's because we're thinking about it wrong. You know, technology becomes mundane before it becomes revolutionary. It has to get boring before it can change anything. And there's something else here happening too. If we think about what we're actually talking on right now, you know, all the systems in place, have you noticed how these systems tend to make us a little bit paranoid? Like we're all becoming kind of like amateur spies. Well, these systems were originally designed and built for the intelligence services. And so now we're all using hand-me-down infrastructure, you know, and it makes us feel like we're behind enemy lines, that we're the spies. You know, everyone can think about that friend who can like take one picture of someone and find their, thank you, thanks Ian, 10 minutes, fantastic. Yeah, I think that's perfect. So this, if we imagine kind of like this infrastructure that's been built by the intelligence services, and we're using this hand-me-down infrastructure, it can make us feel like the system is in some ways training us to be spies, to be wary of being tricked, to always question if people are real actors or not. So all of this together is, the environment itself carries echoes of our future, but we're so busy looking for drastic changes that we miss the quiet revolution happening under our nose. Maybe that's a better way to think about technological change, not just as a straight line into the future, but as waves that come and go. The future isn't a thing that arrives all at once. It's already here, becoming mundane before it becomes revolutionary. And if you want to see the future, don't look for the exciting stuff. Look for what's getting boring. That's where the real revolution is happening. So to bring this all back together, culture is clearly outpacing human evolution. Our bodies have not caught up to the speed of our medium. And that's why we're all feeling a bit out of joint, out of time with the present. We're born into a time that's already moved past us. Think about how we're effectively reversing into the singularity, looking through kind of a rear view mirror. But here's the thing about that mirror. Everything in it looks boring and played out and cringe because the future already arrives mundane. Look at what's happened the moment the internet arrived. You know, as we were talking about earlier, everyone started fetishizing stripped back styles, exposed brick, artisanal coffee. You know, in a world drowning in virtuality, we've become obsessed with what's real. And that's not just some kind of like hipster trend. It's an echo of the future speaking to us. Because in the future, the real becomes sacred. I believe AI won't surpass us. It will inherit our limitations, our envy, our disgust, our fears and anxieties, and our obsession with being real and based and saying and doing stuff that's real and authentic. You know, a language of post-human futures is already echoing in our culture. You know, just go outside and look at the styles, the music, the aesthetic. The bass is coming through. The future is obsessed with the past, just as we're obsessed with the future. You know, we're co-creators locked in a conversation across time. Every new form of culture carries these echoes that when they finally arrive will be just as disappointing as all the futures that came before us. And the people that tend to see this first tend to do so with a wave of nihilism, because those that are the most nihilistic are the dreamers. And the dreamers always already dream up the apocalypse before it happens because they see its arrival everywhere. You know, how to live after the singularity? It's kind of, well, the real question is what story are you telling of the future? Because your words, everything you do is painting its existence. Are you going to imagine a horrible future? A purely utopian delusion? Or will the future just be another boring cloudless Wednesday where both of us and the AI will find dogs cute? The future will be what we say it is, how we write about it, the stories we make up. The future will use us as its mood board. When you believe in the apocalypse, you bring it closer. The real danger isn't our vulnerable bodies, but how dangerous our dreams are. It's hard to see the future, and indeed many people are dreaming onto it, but the future is murky because it's a canvas waiting for us to paint on it. We're already in a form of virtual reality, already swallowed by the sun. So stop trying to win prizes for the most correct version of the future and write your own. And I think that's everything. That's everything.
Let's give it up for Will. Let's go. So that was beautiful. We have 6 minutes for questions. Who wants to start?
All right, dude, that shit was fucking fire, dude. Will's out here like dropping bars, dude. That shit was beautiful. Just another boring cloudless Wednesday. That shit struck a chord, Holmes. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll play out this Q&A session real quick, and then I will ramble and fumble and stuff until I'm done, and then when I'm done, I'll be done, and we can all get back to doing other things, like relaxing. Relaxing is a thing that like people should do. You should all relax. We should relax, but yeah, let's watch this little Q&A part right here, and then I think Daniel has a question, or actually it looks like Jesse has their hand up. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't watched this part, so let's see, dude.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Daniel, do you have any questions?
Well, first, I just wanted to say, Will, excellent presentation. And I think actually the history of technology shows exactly that very big insight on what is mundane is what is actually you want to focus on. That's really important, rather it be in your community that everyone's bored with. That actually is the thing you want to focus on, not the shiny. What do you think are some qualities of a mundane, when a technology becomes mundane? What are, you think, some qualities of that? Because I love that framing that you put out. I'm just wondering what you may think.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's as soon as it becomes something that like your grandma would use or something like that. It's as soon as like basically a technology kind of arrives and we all find it almost a little bit annoying and we want to get rid of it. So as soon as it's something which we want to kind of expunge, it's taken over us. We are infected, we are done, you know, as soon as we're trying to get away from it almost. But when it's all exciting is almost when it's kind of predating that. It's predating that.
I think that is a great just as a comment to that, and then anyone else. I think that idea of once we want to get rid of it, once we're born with it, there's a term that a favorite writer of mine talks about where I can't remember what it, but once it becomes a small thing, once it becomes the napkin rack, once it becomes a spoon, who cares about spoons? That's when it's become mundane. But actually, that's when the innovation can occur. I think that's a great heuristic.
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
Great. So there is a question in the chat from Matthew. He wants to know a few of the echoes that you are thinking about, like those echoes of the future that are here. I think it's in the chat if you wanna look it up.
Yeah. I just had a look at it. I mean, one of the echoes for me is kind of like VR. I think it's
Oh no, dude.
Place where I think something is banal, and that's probably where we're going to see suddenly, you know, we're more than likely going to see VR kind of become kind of commonplace. I think that's one of the echoes, and I suppose another echo is, I think, the way that we view sexuality and the way that different view things like that. Like, it almost become quite boring to have a different sexual identity nowadays. So that kind of says to me that that's kind of rife now. That's something which is kind of really imbued in us. But yeah, those are a couple of echoes. But I guess I want to go out there and find more echoes now.
Yeah, no, I think it's very cool. I have one question because you were mentioning the limitations of AI, right? And I think one of the biggest human limitations is language itself, right? So, do you believe that artificial intelligence is also going to be trapped in its own language? Like, even if it's able to develop, let's say, a new way of language, but it's still going to be limited by that?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that. I mean, just looking the other day, I saw kind of the amount of compute that you add into a large language model doesn't necessarily increase its capability after a certain amount of time, and this kind of happens with most things. And so I do think that this kind of indicates that AI will be stuck in those limitations, that AI will still find some limitation that it won't be able to get past, and then that will be the thing that kind of because right now we're kind of here and it's slowly curving, and at some point you're just going to add more and more compute, more and more CPU power, and you're not really going to get much else out of it. And so that's the limitation. I mean, AI intelligence is limited by thermodynamics. I mean, there's a certain amount of intelligence you can fit per square meter potentially. Like, how much could you fit? So I think there are limitations there. I don't think it's something that's going to become completely super intelligent. I think that's kind of like a nerdy idea.
Yeah. Well, I think those are excellent points. We have 1 minute left. Do you have any closing remarks?
Not really. Just just to kind of keep looking for those echoes. Keep trying to find something that you think's kind of people have not focused on, something that you could maybe have kind of like curves that then go down. Those are the things that are going to be affecting us the most. But yeah.
And then last thing, I know you mentioned some books. Could you list them again? So if we want to go check them out and get a bit closer with your ideas. You mentioned Samuel Beckett. And the other ones?
I think, yeah, I don't think we got his response to that. The Wi-Fi in that room was choppy, shoddy, unreliable. And it's unfortunate because that's the room that we were depending on the final day, the closeout. We were going to use that room so we could have like multiple spaces to have online conversations and to really try some genuine offline conversations. That's something that we don't do that here. There's no such thing as a closed door behind a closed door. And I think necessarily like it has to be that way because we are trying to break out of our like hyper individuated, hyper siloed spaces that we've been like cattle, cattle. What are those called? Cattle runs. There's a word for it where like the cow tracks. I don't know what they're called. There's a word for it, and I was just about to sound really cool. I like to use cool words and cool terms because it's endearing and it makes people think I'm cool, but I failed to do so. But yeah, like we're all kind of forced into these separate, segregated, siloed, individuated spaces. And we are deliberately trying to break out of that. And that requires giving up this fallacy of privacy, of identity in many ways. So there is no such thing as behind closed doors, but that's an extreme statement. It's a sensational statement. There obviously is such a thing as behind closed doors. There are some things that need to stay behind a closed door. And so we were going to try to experiment with that. But it didn't work because the Wi-Fi in that room just was not enough to get us what we needed. So we had to kind of impromptu set up a little Zoom call. So if you actually watch day 4 on the Theory Underground YouTube channel, you'll see we were just recording on my laptop and we had to adapt and move on the fly. And it sucks that it affected that talk a little bit, but I think like 98.5% of that talk came through and it was really good. Again, Will, dude, you're spitting bars, man. I think I would definitely raise a challenge. You say AI will not surpass us. And this question of like, will AI be trapped within its own limits? Of course, it will be trapped within its own limits, but I do think those limits will be different than our human limits. And I do think AI will surpass us because I believe that a subjectivity can emerge from the substrate. So like at some point in time, the human mind was just an animal. Like the human was just an animal and the mind was just a squishy gray goo in our skull. And a subjectivity kind of arose and emerged from all those interconnected neurons. And I believe that's possible with synthetic subjectivity, digital subjectivity, artificial intelligence, right? Artificial general intelligence. I believe that is possible. However, what we have in the world today that gets paraded around as AI is just a parlor trick. It is just like a registry, a database lookup. It really is not much more impressive than technology that was really kind of up and running full steam in the 1970s, and the development of which goes as far back as like the late 1930s and really the 1940s. Norbert Wiener and Alan Turing and these guys and Babbage, Lovelace. Look, it's very impressive technology, but it's like P.T. Barnum, right? It is smoke and mirrors. And what we have today will absolutely not surpass us. And not only will it not surpass us, but it is actively hindering us because people are relying on these large language models for decision making, and I mean, for over a decade at this point, we've had recommendations in Google search, and Amazon. Like that is what Amazon did to kind of stand out. Was like this predictive algorithm. And that technology, like the technology of like prediction and market management in commodities purchasing their consumers. I mean, that goes back. That goes back far, dude. I don't know how far it goes back, but I know that in the 1920s, the 1930s, Edward Bernays was very openly talking about kind of constructing the technology to do that. Manipulating demographics and market tendencies and flows and stuff like that. Propaganda. And Edward Bernays is a spooky dude. He's Sigmund Freud's nephew. I don't know, it's pretty interesting. The first time I heard about Bernays was in relation to Guatemala. Chiquita Banana, which at the time was United Fruit Company. They went and they killed hundreds of thousands of Guatemalan farmers because the CIA was afraid of basically a broad social democratic movement or democratic socialist movement, whatever. Like, it wasn't like they were communists, but it was kind of just like a social democratic movement where they were like, hey, maybe we should allow the native indigenous farmers to benefit from the exploitation of their land rather than giving it all to the United Fruit Company. And the United Fruit Company was like, I don't like this. And they were like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, CIA, can you help us murder hundreds of thousands of people? And the CIA was like, yeah, I'll bet we probably could do that, dude. And so the Dulles brothers did some gnarly shit, and Edward Bernays did some spooky, gross, gnarly shit. But he also explicitly laid out how Frederick Winslow Taylor kind of explicitly laid out scientific management and Taylorism and very much like the managerial revolution, right? Like Taylor was huge in making it explicit, making it a scientific thing. When it comes to like workplace management and atomization of the workflow, like before that, like a craftsman would go out, like chop down a tree, haul it back to the workshop, make a chair, finish a chair, paint it all nice and pretty, and then take it to market and like sell it. And look, this is, again, it's sensational. It's flattened out. It has to be due to the medium. It's not that simple. But it is the case that before Taylorism, the worker as such had far more control and control over and contact with the entire process of production. And after Taylor, we got people who do this singular motion 1,000 times a day, and then we got people who do this singular motion 1,000 times a day, and people who do this singular motion 1,000 times a day, like the making discrete of tasks rather than allowing the process to be an entire holistic process. That's what Taylor did, and Bernays very much did a similar thing with propaganda and with demographic management, population management. Matthew Stanley likes to talk about how we went from a populace to a population. I love that shit. Matthew Stanley was there in that chat as well, asking about examples of these echoes of the future. And I think that's a great question. What is it? Because I like to say, because it sounds romantic, the future is already here and it's in the refuse heap. And I believe that. I believe the revolutions that happen are just kind of shiny objects that distract us from the real actual revolutions that have already taken place. And it's this retroactive thing. Like the revolution already happened, and we have to make ourselves aware of that. And it is in the refuse heap. It will be found among those things that we take for granted and toss away. But that's pretty interesting. But anyway, so going back to I guess one thing I would just raise that challenge. I do think AI will surpass us, but I do think it is important to say what we have right now, this dumb idiot, dumb AI will absolutely not surpass us. It's nothing special. It is an Excel spreadsheet that billions of dollars have been poured into. Rainforests have been chopped down. Rivers have been poisoned. People have been killed to support the energy demands of this, bright and shiny new sports car version of this Excel spreadsheet. And there are people who are banking on it to liberate and emancipate and save us from ourselves. And it's just not going to happen. So it's very important to harp on that point. And I appreciate that you're doing that, Will. But I would just say, don't be too sure of the fact that, you know, we are the only subjects in town. You know, we're not the only game in town. I do believe it is possible for subjectivity to emerge in an electronic substrate. I don't see any difference between the human brain, which is an which is an organic electrochemical substrate, and a digital brain, right? Which would be a silicone or whatever, which would be a mineral electrochemical substrate rather than an organic electrochemical substrate. I don't see the difference. I'm totally open to people explaining to me why I'm wrong. But don't tell me it has to do with God, because I don't believe in God. And I'm not willing to just say, oh, well, God gave us some divine spark. Like, I don't believe in that. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be a jerk. There's something to that conversation. I'm fully with it. I'm fully willing to have that conversation, but also I'm not willing to accept it as an explanation for why humans are unique and special in the universe. But I am open to, like, if someone can be like, no, there's just something necessarily different in the organic composition of the human mind, the human brain, rather than a digital mind or a digital brain. Sure, dude, I'm open to it. But I've not seen one, and I've looked. But anyway, so there's that. But it's a valid point. It's a worthy point. I really like how you say, like, the dreamers are the most nihilistic. I think that's beautiful. I think it's true. I think we dive into our dreams. I think we have to dive into our dreams because the world around us is insufficient. We are the malcontents. We are, the island of misfit toys, or however that goes. We are the lost boys searching for Never Never Land. Like, fuck you, dude. If you're gonna tell me that this is all there is, the world as it is right now, like if you're gonna be like, this is it, dude. No, dude, I'm negative, homie. I'm over it. I'm not with that shit. I'm not willing to put up with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not good, dude. And it is good. It is relatively good. I have it relatively good. I don't have any real reasons to be as miserable as I am, to be as malcontent as I am, other than the fact, maybe it is just the fact that I have a proclivity to dream. I'm predisposed to be a dreamer. And that's why I see the lack in the world around me. But I don't know. I don't know if there's maybe like a definite cause and effect there. I think we're dreamers because we see the lack in the world. I think we see the lack in the world because we're dreamers. And I think those things can both be like co-equal, co-extant, equiprimordial. Like, I don't think we need to say like, oh, well, you're just broken. You have a predisposition to depression. And so therefore, no, because then we can like wind up like celebrating it and doing the thing where we're like, oh, we're all so sad. We're all sad. I'm a sad boy. Or we can like start celebrating and being like, yeah, we are the broken, the beaten, the bruised. I don't know. Like, that whole thing is very popular. That whole thing is very compelling. And it becomes like an aesthetic, and it becomes just like a silly thing. And I don't want to do that. Like, there's some truth to it, and we should acknowledge it and embrace it. But it's also not everything that's happening. Like, this is also not just a giant circle jerk of brokenhearted freaks. I do think we're onto something. I do. I am convinced that there is something else out there for us. Maybe it takes a special certain type of person. And cool. You know what I'm saying? That I want to be with those special certain types of people, but I don't want to just be like, look, we found each other. That's it. We're done. We don't have to do anything else. It's like, no, look, we found each other. Now we have to like embark on this dangerous journey. We have to wage war. You know, we have to like climb Mount Everest and go through the Amazon rainforest and dive to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We have to do these dangerous, amazing, incredible things that are going to be hard, and not all of us will make it. And that sucks. But if some of us make it, then it will have all been worth it. So let's put our fucking safari hats on and our hiking boots. You know what I'm saying? And do the damn thing. But it's beautiful, Will. Really, you have a way with words that I like a lot. I really also like your shout out to Anna Greenspan. I like Anna Greenspan. She's dope. I really do like what she's doing with waves and like this kind of like medium that is there but also not there. She invited us to go post up in China. She was like, yeah, dude, come to China. And I think she was just being like polite, but I also kind of hope that we just show up in China and be like, no, you said we could come, because I think that would be cool. And I hope that happens that way. Like, I hope we just show up in China one day and be like, yo, Nick and Anna, what's good? Let's eat some food, and like, maybe let's go see a punk show, or let's go ice skating and eat noodles or something. I don't know. That'd be cool. But yeah, that was good. Talking about the impersonal tech utopia that we were promised, where our identity would kind of melt away. Yeah, the CRU was big on that. But what really happened was they were reinforced. They were doubled down on time and time again, to the point where they're like ontological categories now, our identity categories, because we have nothing, because like the real world has been destroyed and like replaced by these stupid fucking games, stupid fucking simulations of human Congress, where we look for authenticity. We look for like you say, the raw brick aesthetic, the hipster thing, the this, the that. Like, these are like fourth order simulations, and we all know it's bullshit, but we all play along anyway, because we have no choice but to continue playing along, or we can fucking kill ourselves, or maybe there's something else. Maybe rather than just killing ourselves, maybe rather than just repressing that, you know, hope and need for more, maybe we can like sublate this suicidal impulse and this like freakish drive for more into something else, something that approaches like a method that allows us to fight for the fucking world that we believe in, and we know it doesn't exist, but we believe in it nevertheless. And I think that's what we're doing. I think that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, the authenticity thing is the authenticity and the identity category thing. Yeah, for sure, dude. We can't engage in genuine human Congress, and so we seek out like the commoditized version of it. I watched a movie a while ago. Actually, it was when we were doing the PMC consciousness and ideology course. I saw a movie on Netflix, and I didn't watch it, but I caught the end of it because it was on. So I caught the end of it, and it was a young black kid like running from a cop. And then like the cop like shot him. And then the camera moved, like the camera like it was like a fucking like a delicious display, like how you would film like an opulent meal, like an opulent feast. Like imagine you're a food photographer or a cinematographer, and you're like producing a commercial for food, and there's like this opulent spread of like fancy delicate food, Like imagine the camera moves you would do, you know, you would kind of frame it. You would have a wide shot, you would frame it, and then you'd kind of slowly push, and then maybe move up and kind of spiral over slowly to really kind of let it all kind of breathe in all its beauty and glory. Because you want it to be on display, because it's a feast, right? A feast for the eyes, a feast for the mind, a feast for the soul. The like ritual sacrifice of this like black hood kid by the cops. Like the camera did this move, like it did this slow push and then this kind of graceful swing. And it horrified me, dude. I was like, what the fuck is this, dude? It was, it freaked me out, man. But like we do that because we know that's happening. We know it's happening. And not only do we know it's happening, we know it's necessary to support our way of life. That has to happen for me to be able to sit in my house with the air conditioning on, in my comfy socks or whatever, you know, and have my little world and have my big screen TV, flat screen TV, and have my internet subscription and have my Netflix account. And to watch this movie, we know that in order for all of these things to happen, currently, that's not necessarily, but currently, the way the world works, people do have to be needlessly murdered by the police. And we know it, but we disavow it. And we want to cleanse ourselves of the responsibility. We want to wash our hands of the blood of the, maybe not the innocents, right? But, you know, the people that get ground into dust underneath the wheels of capital. So it's a disavowal, but it's also, I think, an earnest attempt at genuine human congress. Like, I think that is why it becomes so popular for so many, you know, happy suburban people to watch Juice and The Substitute and Menace to Society, and like to the homeboy fetish. It's something I've thought and talked about, something I've written about. It is a disavowal. It is like this ritual cleansing for largely, you know, happy ish suburban people who don't live in the inner city and who don't have like direct contact with that stuff. But who know it's still a necessary part of the world as it is. It's also an earnest attempt to connect and to communicate, I think. And so we shouldn't be like, ew, you're gross, you suck, you're the problem. We should, I don't know, maybe ask people to like really interrogate why they watch shit like that. What are they getting out of shit like that? And if they'd be willing to do something more than just watching shit like that. And I'm sure some people won't be. And I'm sure a lot of people can't. It's the thing too. I think a lot of people like, I know I definitely, when I was younger, when I was like this gnarly radical punk rocker dude, I was like, yeah, like nothing matters. I don't care. Like, fuck you. Like, if you're not doing enough, then you're part of the problem. Like, you're either a part of the problem or you're a part of the solution. There's no fucking in between. It's not that people are unwilling. It's not that people are being selfish. It's that they just can't, dude. You can't ask people to give up on their families. You can't ask people to put the health and wellness of their children at risk, or their partners, or their, you know, elderly relatives. Like, you can't ask people to put it all on the line, because not everybody has nothing to lose. Elton brought that up in his talk. I think it's a fucking fantastic point. Something that needs to be really fucking harped on, really driven home. Like, not everybody has nothing to lose. The world is a horrible, miserable, terrible, horrible fucking place, and horrible fucking things happen all the time, constantly, every second. But also there are great things that happen every day for many, many people. And we can't erase that. We can't ignore that. We can't pretend like that's not true, lest we ourselves become part of the problem. But it definitely is like an attempt at reconnecting with something human, because we have been so alienated from ourselves and our and others. But yeah, Will, fucking fantastic, great point. Mining me. That was another good point. We're all always mining each other. We're all always already mining each other anyway. And yeah, I think that's true. And I think there's like, that's part of being a human. We are the solar anus. We are creatures who consume. We are creatures who convert resource to waste. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. The way it works in the world currently, it is a bad thing, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. So there is a necessary type of exploitation, a necessary type of alienation that's always taking place. If we had a different system of exchange, a different system of production predicated on a different system of exchange, then maybe we could, rethink exploitation. But as it stands right now, because exchange works the way it works, we just can't escape it. And so we shouldn't, there are people who are like, yeah, alienation is good, actually. Let's fucking lean into it. Let's accelerate it. No, I think you're missing the point. It's not that alienation is good, actually. It is that alienation is necessary to some degree. And so we should incorporate it because we have to, because we can't escape it. And so we shouldn't waste our energy trying to fight it. And we can use it to our own ends, and we can hijack the tendencies to our own human ends. But that's not the same thing as like leaning into it fully and accelerating it fully. So that's like a nuanced thing that I think, some people miss. But yeah, she was mining you. That was such a great framing. Will, thank you. I really liked it a lot. Authenticity core. Yeah, that's going back to like the raw brick. Authenticity core. You didn't call it that, but I'm calling it that, and I think that's a good name for it. This aesthetic, the authenticity core. And I think that's why I recently have become more and more aware of my delivery and my appearance and my approach. I don't want to just be the guy who says the funny thing or who says the bad words, or who relies on, yeah, I'm a cool punk rocker. Ooh, 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 I don't want to do that because I think there are people who very much do rely on that and kind of slide down that hill into nothing but authenticity core. Now I'm slightly retarded and I do struggle to communicate. And so there's some things I just can't help, but the things I can help, I do want to help them. And I want to avoid sliding down the hill into authenticity core, because that's fucking fake and gay and I don't want to do it. So if you catch me slipping, call me out. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's it as far as like my initial, the cuteness, also collaboration. So yeah, like the cuteness thing, the Catboys. Yeah, that's a thing where people will be like, oh, and that's another thing too with this authenticity core, or at least like the type of authenticity core that I fear falling into. Also the cuteness thing. Also like, there's the Catboy thing or whatever. That's a problem, right? I mean, like Nick Fuentes and shit like that. Like they do all that like Catboy shit. But there's also like with like dudes my age, like with millennial dudes my age, there's like this sad boy core thing, and it's like, yeah, I listened to like August Burns Red and like Inked in Blood and A Day to Remember. Like I listen to these like heavy emo bands, and I have tattoos and I'm cool looking, but I'm really sad. And it's like, fuck you, dude. like you're, I think there's like this malicious like thing that people are doing, and I don't want to do that either. But yeah, like the cuteness being an inroad for a malicious actor or a malicious agent, that's a fucking huge point. And it happens with kawaii stuff, it happens with the Catboys, but it also, I mean, it can happen with anything really, you know what I'm saying? And then the wolves were cute, and so that's how they got inside the ring around the, you know, the campfire at night. We let the wolves in because they were cute, and then we started collaborating with the wolves, and it was through our collaboration with the wolves that we managed to extend ourselves in very tremendous ways. So yeah, collaboration and kind of co-creation. That might have been it. I had a lot of other thoughts, man, but like I just wrote here, Athens, J-Reg, the horror. Yeah. Well, I think this was amazing, dude. Thank you sincerely for your talk, for your words, for your work, for your thought. I really appreciate it. Actually, I do want to get with you on other shit too, but I want to get with you and go over this. I also want to get with you and go over look, man, you had some good feedback for me on my shit, and I want you to tell me, like, I want you to be like, oh yes, Nance, this is what you did well. That's my impression of you, and I'm not doing a good job. But yeah, dude, I mean, I want you to give me some feedback, positive feedback, but also some constructive feedback, because I think you have a great mind for narrative. I think you have a great mind for fiction, storytelling. And yeah, I want to get with you on all that shit, but it's Saturday, so let's go Saturday it up. I'm going to go hopefully ride my skateboard a little bit or something, and post up before Chris Catrone launches the final lecture in the Introduction to Marx course at Theory Underground. Once again, last night, Kier joined us here on this channel, and that was lovely. That was great. And I also, tomorrow, the plan is to get with Cesar, and then next week to get with Ian and Jacob as well. Kind of do a similar thing, go over TUCON a little bit, reflect, decompress, talk, plan, and all these things. But I also would like to maybe bring on some presenters as well. So once we're done with all the hosts, I would like to bring on some of the individual presenters as well, and also prepare for, you know, the upcoming M stews. There's a ton of shit to go through, and prepare for the anthologies. I have a lot that I need to write. I do have quite a few pieces that I'm hoping to get in the anthologies. So I have a lot of work to do, and all of you people also have a lot of work to do. As I said earlier, TUCON is over. We did it. Is this the red button? Yay! We did it, dude. Woo! Good for us. Yay! But now it's done. Now it's over with, and now we need to get back to work. So if you're down to clown, then let's do it. And if not, you know, if you are just a person who wants to view it, to partake in that way, you can still go through these talks again, go through the presentations, read the works that have already been published, and read the forthcoming works when they come out. That's work that you can still do too. Like, you don't have to be this person who thinks of themselves as like someone who is a writer, or, you know, someone as a thinker or a speaker or whatever, someone who has something to say. Being in the audience is also an integral part of everything we're doing too. So I invite you to continue to do the work as well. But all that said, it's Saturday. Thank you all so much for joining me for Saturday Morning Cartoons with Nance. I'll see some of you hopefully in a couple hours in the Introduction to Marxism course, and I'll see the rest of you some other time.